Heartache is not caused by things on the outside. It's triggered by things on the outside, but it's caused by your natural, normal, necessary disconnection from yourself by your focus going into the world that you have to get to know for survival. The strongest driving force in every human being is to find their way to wholeness. The wholeness is inside. And because nobody tells us that, and it's not part of our education program.
No.
So then we're looking for it outside. Maybe it's the woman, maybe it's the guy, maybe it's the money, maybe it's the fame, maybe it's the adventure, maybe it's the drug, maybe it's the booze, maybe it's the sex, maybe it's and we're looking to be fulfilled on the outside, and the fulfillments on the outside are always short-lived.
Electricast. Welcome to Season 4 of Transforming 45. I'm your host, Lisa Boat, and this season we're stepping fully into our power. The heat, the hormones, the heartbreak, the healing. This is midlife, raw and redefined. Each episode, you'll hear stories of humans who are rewriting the rules, reclaiming their bodies, their desires, their voices. This is where we stop shrinking, start shining, and remember who the hell we are. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's an awakening. Let's get transforming 45.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Transforming 45. Today is again a lesson where I need to just always be recording. My guest today and I have already been having a very fun and playful conversation, and so I can't wait for all of you to join us. So today I am thrilled to welcome Udo Erasmus, who has been a voice in the health and wellness space for over 40 years. Long before healthy fats were mainstream, he was questioning what we were being taught and developing new ways to create truly healthy oils, including flaxseed oil. He's the author of several books, including Your Body Needs an Oil Change, an updated version of Fats That Heal and Fats That Kill, which has sold over 250,000 copies worldwide. While training in biochemistry, biology, and counseling psychology, Udo's work sits at the intersection of science, lived experience, and inner awareness. Udo, so glad to have you here today. Welcome to the show.
What a nice introduction.
Yeah. Well, you've got a life with a lot of story to tell, so I'm looking forward to that. So let's start with that. Who are you, and how did life introduce you to this version?
Well, anybody who can tell you who they are and doesn't think they're still a work in progress trying to figure it out is lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And fundamentally, look, I was born during the Second World War, and my parents were poor. They lost everything. I was a war baby. Then I was a refugee. The communists were chasing us in tanks and trucks. The Allies, that's us guys. We like to be the good guys. They were using us, refugees, as target practice, shooting at us from planes. And there's all mothers with young children on horse-drawn hay wagons on dirt road with no military presence. And then she had to leave the road, go through the snow-covered fields, but she had 6 kids with her and she could only take 2, so she had to leave 4 behind. I got left behind, so I got to be an orphan for a while. And then eventually we got reunited and ended up from Poland. They came from Latvia. We went through Poland and ended up in Germany. And then when I was 10 in 1952, we emigrated to Canada, to British Columbia. I would say who I am is a function of thoughts, of scary situations, and of the school of hard knocks. Because when you start like I did, then you tend to not feel that safe. You always want to know how things work because that gives you a certain amount of predictability and security. So I'm a born scientist in that sense.
Uh-huh.
And you don't trust much. So I've always insisted on figuring things out myself as much as possible. Obviously, you can't figure everything out by yourself, but I'm very much experienced. My father used to say, do you always have to experience everything? Can't you just obey me once? And I wouldn't. Even when he told me what my chores were, I would sit down, think about it, let it land inside of me, and then I'd get up and say very proudly, okay, I'm going to do my chores now. But I would never just do them just because he said so. They called it stubborn, and I call it persistent.
Uh,
But out of that persistence have come my hard knocks stories, but out of that persistence has also come everything that I'm super proud of that I've had a chance to do and accomplish. So I don't know if I don't know if that tells you who I am, but it's a hint.
Yeah, it's a it's intentionally a big question.
Mm-hmm.
And I added the second part, this version, because when I first started asking the question, people would respond with, I'm a scientist, or I'm a mother, or and they were all roles that people
Yeah.
play, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not actually who they are. And so when I added this version, it opened it up to, yeah, we are constantly works in progress, and every moment there is a new version. And one of the things I also heard in your story, well, one, a lot of familiarity. I am married to an engineer who has all of the same traits. I have to experience everything, and you cannot tell me a single thing. So I'm very familiar with this.
Hmm.
And I also hear that there's
I
so
think I
much
would like him a lot.
you would. There's a lot
Kindred
of
spirits.
curiosity. Oh, absolutely. And there's a lot of curiosity in that, right? And being inherently curious. So, how do you think that persistence and curiosity has led you to the work that you're doing today?
Well, the curiosity really came from I was very shy and I never felt safe. And so I always wanted to know how things work. I don't know how else can you make things predictable. But during the war, nothing was predictable. Every day we got told a different story because it was chaos. And so in order to try and deal with their survival issues, they had to change their mind every 2 hours. That's just like, I think one of the things that comes out of it, maybe don't have kids in a war zone. Right? Might be nice for them to have a stable situation. Try to be stable yourself in your own being too. I think that's a huge issue, right? Because if you want them to have the freedom and the courage to explore the world, which is completely unknown to them when they slide out of their mother's body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you want to have a certain kind of foundation of safety within which a child can do its explorations and learn about the world. And maybe as an adult, you need to find that security within yourself, because it's within every human being. There is a peace in every human being that is our universal essence and is the essence of everything in the universe. So there's more peace in the universe than anything else. And that's how peaceful it is. Galaxies explode in that peace, and the peace is not affected. It's like space, right? You have an explosion in space, but space is not affected. Well, we have that in us, but as a child, you had it in your mother's womb, but then you got blown out into the world. And then, then it's like, oh my God, what is this? Where's the roadmap? You don't have words. You don't know what it is. Everything is new. Then you got to somehow through your senses, mostly vision and touch, I would say, but you get to know the world of surfaces of things that you're born into.
Yeah, it's a number of interesting points there. And when thinking about a new human, I remember looking at my own new human as they entered the world thinking, this is a really hard day for you.
Yeah, it's the worst day,
I know.
Because inside, look, there were nowhere to go, nothing to do, it was safe.
Yes.
Everything, all your needs were met. You literally just got to hang out for 9 months. I call it the Buddha tank, in the Buddha tank.
Yes.
In deep meditation, because your focus wasn't going out because they had no place to go. So your focus was at rest inside, in the core, in its source, in the core of your being, in peace and in unconditional empowering love.
Yes.
That's what you experienced in the womb. And then you got.
Yeah, it's like that being shot out of a cannon, and all of a sudden it's bright light and strange smells, and it is instantly
Yeah.
a completely different
Yeah.
reality.
And then your focus gets pulled out into the world because you have to get to know it. And then you get disconnected from yourself. And that's where heartache begins.
Right.
Heartache is not caused by things on the outside. It's triggered by things on the outside, but it's caused by your natural, normal, necessary disconnection from yourself by your focus going into the world that you have to get to know for survival, right? So,
I was an educator for 20 years. So I've watched child's development over decades,
yeah,
how it's shifted and changed in this time. Because I started my first year teaching was 2001. So I taught through a time of significant change and transition. And my career ended in COVID because I was seeing how children's nervous systems were being so deeply impacted, but we were not giving them the space or tools to actually be able to do that, to be able to turn inside, figure out what's going on with themselves. We just kept layering on more external factors.
yeah.
And so, how do you see those factors, those disconnecting factors, that heartache play out, have physical manifestations in our physical health?
Well, heartache is just one word for this disconnection from ourselves. You call it discontent because it's certainly discontent. You could call it the blues. You can call it loneliness. You can call it longing, striving, sadness, grief, sorrow, loss, because we lost something when our focus went out. And now what we're doing is that is our driving force. That is our strongest driving force. The strongest driving force in every human being is to find their way to wholeness. But the wholeness is inside. And because nobody tells us that, and it's not part of our education program. This is
No.
what I'm talking about. So then we're looking for it outside. Maybe it's the woman, maybe it's the guy, maybe it's the money, maybe it's the fame, maybe it's the adventure, maybe it's the drug, maybe it's the booze, maybe it's the sex, maybe it's so, and we're looking to be fulfilled on the outside. And the fulfillments on the outside are always short-lived because we live in a world of change. So one day she dumps me, right? And then I feel blue. That's another good word for heartache. And
Mhm.
I think she caused my blues, but she didn't. She just triggered my blues because blues is that uneasy feeling in our chest
Mhm.
is our default position after we're born and get disconnected. And so all of the crazy stuff that's going on in the world is people trying to find their wholeness in ways that don't bring it. Because the way that you fix that, you have to sit with your heartache. We don't like heartache, it's like, it's uncomfortable. So what do? Either we distract ourselves from it, or we try to ignore it, or we try to deny it, or we try to rationalize it. So we do that, or we blame it on somebody. But what we need to do, because it's not anybody else's fault. It's just part of how it is. I guess you could blame it on God if you're going to do that. But even that doesn't work. So you sit with heartache and feel it and be with it and be with yourself in the heartache. And maybe you'll have some tears, but it
Mhm.
won't kill you. It won't kill you. And
No.
maybe you can just accept it and feel it, embrace it, acknowledge it, maybe even be a little grateful for it because it pulled you out of your head and put you into your body. And
Yeah.
that far, less than a hair's breadth behind your heartache is that wholeness that you disconnected from after you were born. And when you find that wholeness again, then you can start living properly because then you realize I'm taken care of. I'm unconditionally loved, and peace is my foundation. That's biologically speaking, that's true. And so I'm taken care of. It's not about me anymore because I'm taken care of. If I don't feel cared for, it's only about me. But once I feel taken care of, it's not about me. So say, okay, where can I help? What needs to be done? How can I make the biggest splash for good in the time that I have?
Yeah.
So then your life changes. It becomes simple. Because it's complicated when it's about you and you're thinking this, well, no, that didn't work. Or no, oh, no, that didn't. Oh, that was good for 3 months, but then it was like, no. And you're literally searching in the world for something that is already fully present inside of you.
Mhm.
But for some reason, we don't make that part of our teaching. Every child should get, because heartache begins early. And disappointment is another one, right? And, restlessness, emptiness, So you feel that pretty young. It'd be kind of cool if from an understanding of what it is and from knowing the journey back, which all the wise people talked about. Socrates, know thyself. He didn't say know everything but thyself. That's what we do. He said, know
Yes.
thyself, because the unexamined life is not worth living.
Yes.
Right?
And yet what we do is teach children how to suppress and cover their emotions rather than actually feeling them and understanding where that emotion is coming from and what that emotion is telling them. It's one of the things that I find really fascinating about this midlife time, because in all of the stories that I've had the opportunity to listen to, there is a theme of I did all the things I was supposed to do, right? I covered up my emotions. I walked all the roads that I was told I needed to walk. I followed all the rules. And then I get to this stage
Yeah.
where shifts are happening in my body that, like you said earlier, actually are calling me back. They are insisting that I come back to my body in this time. And then there's shifts in life context, right? If you've had children are leaving home, perhaps parents who you've been caring for have passed away, and we find ourselves with this confluence of time in a way that we've never had it before, and a body that is demanding that we pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see how supporting people to come back into their bodies and make these choices that help us live that examined life and make those reconnections to self?
It literally starts with heartache and reframing, literally reframing heartache. Heartache is the greatest gift you've been given by life. And why is that? Well, the same way that thirst makes water relevant, and hunger makes food relevant, and tiredness makes your bed relevant, and needing to pee makes the toilet relevant, right?
Mhm.
Well, it's like that, right? The same way heartache makes contentment, completion, oneness, wholeness, peace, and love relevant. Because it's not like you need, everybody who says, I did a talk once. I said to them, so who here wants more love? All the hands went up. And I said, ha, 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 fooled ya. Because giving love will make you feel loved. Because you are love in your essence. You don't need love from the outside. You need to bring your focus back to the love you are. And when you feel that love and you bring that to expression, and when you don't depend on somebody else giving you love who doesn't when they don't feel like it, right? And then you become dependent on that. That's not a good dependence, right? In relationship, why relationships end up not working, why 60% people get divorced? Because they see the beauty in the other and they don't see it in themselves. And then the other way around, see the beauty in the other, not in themselves. So then I think, okay, you think that your beauty will come from out there, and the other person thinks the beauty will come from you. But neither of you can get to the beauty that you are and bring it into the relationship. Well, where the hell in the relationship is that love then supposed to come from? And then what happens is, well, you disappointed me. Well, I thought you were better than you are because you're not giving me what I actually need to do myself, right? And then the relationships fall apart because I wanted you to do my homework for me, and maybe you wanted me to do your homework for you. So this is the homework before you get into a relationship, before you have kids, before you decide what is your purpose, where can you make your best contribution. You need to come home to yourself. And heartache is the beginning of that. That's why I sit with it. And I was 17 when I remember I started feeling heartache every day, and I couldn't shake it because I had already been through the war and lots of things, and I already knew a lot of things that don't get you. So I couldn't find any distractions that I knew that or hoped or thought would get me taken care of. So I was sitting and I was, was nothing wrong with my heart.
Huh.
Just that feeling in my chest. I was a strapping lad. I'm off a farm, right? So I was in pretty good shape, but my heart ate every day for 13 years. And I tried all kinds of stuff. I think I would say 1960, I think it was 1964, 1966. I did an LSD journey, and I laughed and laughed, and tears were running down my cheeks, rolling on the floor, laughing in time to Mozart music.
Uh-huh.
And it struck me as the funniest thing I had ever come across in my whole life at that time. I was, I guess, 22, right? 24, something like that. Struck me as the funniest thing is that everything I was so studiously looking for, it struck me as the funniest thing. It's a joke about God, right?
Well, it's the absurd, right? It's when we enter into the world, the narrative we've inherited is that, yes, you have to find yourself outside of yourself, when the truth is, like you were saying, we have everything inside of ourselves. And
It's
when you
already there.
come to that, it's the theater of the absurd.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we know about hunger for, you go for food, thirst, you go for water. So we know those parts. But when it comes to heartache, we don't know what the hell it is and what the hell to do with it. And the truth is, right behind the heartache is your wholeness, your reconnection to yourself. You could call it, the divine child within you. You could call it whatever you want to call it. Every child is born a Christ child, because life is the master in the body. And life is a fraction of solar energy, filtered through 93 million miles and then through the atmosphere and then into green plants and then stored in bonds between atoms, because they activate electrons that then bond. Then you eat that as food, and in your cells, those bonds are broken, that energy is released. Now it's called life. That life is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient in your body, not in everybody else's body, but in your body. Weighs nothing, runs everything. 60 trillion cells. Keeps all of that coordinated so that you can actually walk and talk, right? Just think about it. It's a miracle. You're a miracle inside of a miracle.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, actually.
Even if you have a wart on your nose and there's a hair on that wart, you're still a miracle.
Yeah.
Right? Because even that's a miracle.
Absolutely.
And then, so that's the master in the body. Its nature is a flow of unconditional, empowering love. And what the masters talked about, Buddha, Krishna, Christ, they were teachers of human nature. They spent time with themselves. They said, so what did he say? Like the one we mostly hear about. Kingdom of heaven is within you. Oh, well, what's in the kingdom of heaven? Well, all the good stuff, none of the bad stuff, right? That's definition of heaven. Kingdom of heaven is within you. And then says, first seek the kingdom, and then everything else will fall into place. Now, how many people actually do that? Because if the kingdom of heaven within me, my next question should be, okay, well, if the kingdom of heaven is within me and I'm supposed to give that priority, how do I do that? Right? Well, it must mean I have to bring my focus from wherever it is wandering around in the world or in my head. I have to bring my focus inward into the space my body occupies. How do you do that? Probably the easiest way to do it is to sit or lie as still as you possibly can and see how still you can become and see how deep you can go into that stillness and see how long you can hang out there and see how calmly and evenly and quietly and lightly you can breathe, and then notice what is in that space. You can see something in that space. You can hear something in that space. You can feel something in that space. You can even taste something in that space. And then what is it? What is it? And then the more you do that, the deeper you go, the better you get at it, the easier it becomes. At the beginning, it's kind of like, oh my God, that's like learning to walk. We learned to focus outside. Like when my son was born, his eyes opened and his eyes rolled in their sockets, but he never fixed on anything because he wasn't out there. He was still inside. Then pretty soon he was pretty good at going out. So we got good because we did it every day, all the time. What's that?
Yes.
Something moves, something sounds, because you have to figure out what it is because it's for survival. So we've become really good at it, and we hardly ever go in. So we're not very good at it.
We're not.
So you want to say, okay, start with heartache, find your way behind the heartache, do that on a regular basis, just like you do peeing, just like you do eating, just like you do drinking, just like you do sleeping. Give some time every day to being with yourself. You want to get to know yourself? Well, you got to spend time with yourself in quiet, not distracted, and then kind of begin to feel how beautiful it feels to be alive. Or even to look at your fingers that you have like these funny bone things that are made out of chalk, right? And then there's little things, joints on them, and there's muscles across the joints. And then and oh my God, you can carry your girlfriend's books, or you can carry a bottle of water, or all of the crazy things you can do because this dust and water and air with a little bit of sunlight that you are can have the human experience of all of that entails. The moods and the actions and the thoughts and everything is made possible by an arrangement of a handful of dust, 3 buckets of water, and a bag full of air.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we are.
Which is the miraculousness of it all.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would say you want something holy and miraculous and sacred. Biology is the sacred. And then your biology, you want to go more deeply into the sacred, you have to go into your own space. I can see your face. And from my experience of myself, I know that many things that I love about my life are also true for you, but they're not true for me about you. They're true for you about you.
Yeah. Yes.
So people say, oh, it's selfish to spend time with yourself. No, it's not, because no one can enjoy the gift of life, your gift of life for you. So if you're not enjoying it and taking time to really enjoy it, you're actually wasting the gift because nobody else can enjoy it for you. And then when you get fully present in all of your being, you become way more capable of helping people and doing things that need to be.
Yes.
Because that's all your talents are inside of you.
And so when we think about the miraculousness that is the body and your life's body of work, what's missing most for how to care for this incredible vessel? And how is that impacting our health and well-being and how we are able to experience the joy of this reality?
Well, that's a mouthful.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things coming to my mind all at the same time as I was getting that out.
All good. So honestly, the single most important thing that is being missed, and if I was to blame somebody, I would blame the churches. Because if you listen to the masters, they said, what I have, you have. What is in me is in you. That, and I started to say, life is the master. Christ talked about life. What did they say? In him was life, and the life was the light of men. That life is light. That light is Christ. That light is the master. That solar energy fraction runs everything in every human being and in every animal and in every plant, in every fungus, and also in every microbe. Same solar energy runs life on all levels. So the single most important thing that we don't know and don't teach and don't practice is to sit still and connect to the peace that is our universal essence and the unconditional empowering love that is our individual essence. If we did, we would be in peace. And, when you feel peace, you don't go around killing people.
Huh.
War doesn't end because you take the guns away from people. War ends because you bring them peace. Because if you're not bringing them peace, then you're just on the journey to the next war. Like I was born during the Second World War. That war started in 1939. The First World War ended in 1918. So they had 21 years in which they could have practiced peace, knowing that war is really bad, right? But they didn't do that. So they, 21 years later, had another war, right? Now, that war ended in 1945. You would think that with all of the craziness that happened in that war, you would think that people would say, gee, we should really study peace. We should really find out what is peace. It must be something. What is peace and how do we cultivate peace? You know, we don't even think about quality of life. You know, the only measure of, you know, that we have in Canada is how the banks are doing, the economy. That's all we measure. We don't measure, do people feel safe? You know, is there communication? Is there cooperation? Is there love between people? Are they able to work together? Are they making sure that everybody's needs are met by doing what they can together? See, we could be doing all of that, but all we do is count money.
Yeah,
Right? And so then you look at, you look at the world and you say, the single one thing we have never done. And by the way, I'm working on these two projects. One is to turn human nature into a teachable field. Nature and a function needs a certain kind of attention on a regular basis, goes off in a different way in response to a different kind of intervention. So we need to make human nature a teachable field, into a teachable field, because what we call healthcare is actually disease management misrepresented as healthcare.
Yes.
We don't even have a definition. You know, Health Canada does not have a definition of health that is actionable and practical and actually works. And health wasn't created by governments or legals or pharmacies or doctors or governments. Health was invented by life in nature and is the result of living aligned with nature and in line with your nature. And so that's the second thing I'm working on, because it's the second most important thing we have as a human race. And it's the second thing that we have never, ever in 200,000 years of living here turned into an organized, teachable, learnable, practical field. We know more about eye watches than we know about human nature or health.
Yeah. You've articulated a lot of things that have been, I've thought about for a long time, but have really been brought forward because the time that we are living in has made it very evident that we as a collective decided that the economy and money was more important than anything else.
Than life.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And so when we are living in that constraint, and that is the focus, and that everything outside of that doesn't matter, it means that we have turned our back on life, right? And the love that we have for each other. Because I know people talk about how complicated it is to come to peace, but the reality is it's as simple as looking at the person across the battlefield and saying, I do not want to harm you.
Yeah, except that I think before that, you have to look at yourself.
Yes.
And because that's where the love lives. You know, and when you feel loved, you don't want to hurt people. You know, if we were in touch with the feeling of the love that we are, we would not need any other laws. And the masters were kind of smart that way. You know, they only had one law. You know, they asked him, like Jesus, what's the law? He says, look, love God with all your heart, all your might, and your neighbor as yourself. So it's just love. Love. In fact, I had a meeting with a being made of light once. It's a whole other story.
Yeah.
And the message that this master embodied was, I am come not to judge, but to love.
Yes.
Now, they didn't only made one law because they knew if you don't follow the law of love, you'll break every other law at your convenience. So why make them? Why not just focus people on feeling the love, finding the love, experiencing the love, and then bringing that love to expression in how you act, because that'll be automatic. So the time is to suck back and to get connected to the love and then go and express it into the world, rather than going out there and shaking the bushes to try and find the love that you're actually sitting in. right?
Mhm.
And this is, I think, the big issue. I think Buddha talked about heartache. He said, sit with it. Jesus said, if your eye is single, your whole body will be filled with light. If you go inside, your body is filled with light. It's that solar energy fraction that is life, that is light, that is Christ, that is the master, that is your essential, your individual being, right? And somehow, I studied biology because I wanted to know what life is. And then I studied psychology because I wanted to know what soul is. We weren't religious, but it sounded like soul. Oh, that sounds mysterious. That sounds like, yeah, maybe that'd be cool. We didn't study life in biology. We studied form and function. We never studied life. We never studied soul in psychology. We studied thoughts, beliefs, and emotions, not soul. Then I went into medicine. I wanted to know what health is because they called it healthcare. We only studied disease. So we didn't study health in medicine. I left university. I got into biochemistry and genetics, didn't find it. Left genetics. Left university. It's just like something still missing. So then I got into the psychedelics that I briefly spoke about. And then I decided no more psychedelics for 2 years because they can be hard on your body. I was okay, but I said, I only get one body. I got to look after it. So then I say, okay, but I still haven't, like the U2 says, I still haven't found what I'm looking for, right? And so that was totally was me, right? And so I said, okay, well, what's next? So I decided if I wanted to model myself after somebody in my culture, it would be either Socrates or Jesus. And they're still talking about these guys like 2,000 years later. Nobody remembers my grandfather. He's not been dead for 50 years. I don't even know his name. He died before I was born, but so I never knew him. So why are they still talking about this guy? He was kind to people and was helpful to people. Yeah, he'd be good. So I got a red letter edition Bible where everything that Jesus says is printed in red ink, and the whole rest of the Bible is in red ink, is in black ink. My deal was I'm 2,000 years late to the party. I need to get focused on how close can I get to what his message was. And I got to a point where I said, I want to feel what he felt because his life was like poetry, and poetry comes from feeling.
Yes.
So I wanted to know what that feeling was. And so I was reading the red letters, putting them to the test, had some great experiences. And I ended up, this group came to Vancouver from California. They're called the Jesus People's Army. And that army should have been a caution to me because army was not a good word in my experience. But I missed it because I thought, they must be all like me. They're trying to figure it out. And we're all going to get together and we're going to talk about our stories and our adventures and our experiences. And we're all going to leave the evening enriched by each other. And I was so sure of that without having any proof. But it's obviously what I wanted to happen. But so I went to their coffee house and I sat down in a chair and this guy immediately swooped in next to me. That should have been my second warning, and I missed that one too. And I didn't introduce myself. I just looked him in the eyes and I said, it must be possible to see God. And I thought this would be the beginning of a beautiful conversation, deep conversation about an awesome topic. Well, he jumped out of his chair and he was jumping around the room and his arms were flying around like this, screamed at the top of his lungs, "You're from the devil. You're from the Antichrist. Get out." So I go slinking out. I'm standing on the sidewalk saying, well, I haven't seen God, so maybe I shouldn't have said that. And I was like, I got really confused and really desperate. And it wasn't like I didn't even get into, oh, that stupid asshole or anything like that, but it's just like, really want to know what's true here. And I hitchhiked to Vancouver Island, to a West Coast beach, completely deserted. It's just me and the logs and the sand and the air and the water. Decided to go and clear my head. That's how I used to clear my head in nature. It's a good way to do it.
Yep.
if you don't have a practice that you can do it. And I fell asleep, and in the middle of the night, I woke bolt upright from dead asleep. And there was a being made of light on a cloud made of light. And that being didn't have a label on it. It didn't say anything. Couldn't tell if it was male or female. Couldn't tell if it was old or young. Wasn't an angel because it had no wings, right? I'm just describing my process, right? But embodied a message. And I could put words to the message. The message was, I am come not to judge, but to love. There's the essence of the message of the masters to humanity, but that's also the essence of life to your body. I am come not to judge, but to love. Life loves your body unconditionally, 24/7, lifelong. And all of my confusion evaporated. I have not had a question about what was the message of the master. I want to know what is real about life.
Yes.
That I didn't get to see in biology, in studying biology, and there's soul that I didn't see in psychology, and it could have called it spirit, could have called it life, could have called it the master, could have called it Christ. Every one of those is a synonym. We all have built into human nature that thing the masters talked about, that they realized that they made real in their life because they spent time quiet, experiencing the fullness of their existence, and then speaking from that fullness to that fullness in other people. Yeah. And then if people were interested, and they showed them methods for making it sit still in a safe place without distractions. So you want to leave all the distractions outside, and you want to just learn to be with yourself and just feel it, just experience, see it, hear it, feel it. And then what happens? Nothing changes except the quality of your life becomes amazing because it is amazing in its nature. Should you accept
this challenge?
Yeah. Should you accept
this challenge? Yeah.
Yeah. So like what so, and then when you experience it, then it comes to expression automatically. So you become a nicer person because if you're in peace and in love, and then you're inspired, you can do good things.
That is a really beautiful place to put this conversation down because it leaves a very clear message and a very simple practice of being still and listening and letting yourself feel all of it. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with us today. If you feel called, all of Udo's contact information will be in the show notes, so make sure you check that out.
Thank you for hanging out with me on Transforming 45. If you laughed, nodded, or had an oh wow moment, hit follow and share it with your favorite midlife human. Find me on Instagram @lboat and keep those transformations coming.
Electric acid.